The great chamber of the Nexus station floated in the darkness of space, filled with beings from across the galaxy. Lights of every color blinked and pulsed as hundreds of species gathered for the emergency meeting. Some had scales, others had fur or smooth skin. Some breathed oxygen while others existed in special bubbles filled with different gases. But today all of them shared the same emotion: fear. Ambassador Zephyx stood at the center platform. His blue skin had turned pale, and his forearms trembled as he activated the holographic display. The image that appeared made the entire chamber fall silent. It showed a fleet of ships, but they were unlike anything the current civilizations had built. These vessels were black as the void between stars, massive beyond reason, and shaped like geometric nightmares that hurt to look at. "The Devourers have returned," Zephyx said, his voice barely above a whisper. The translation devices carried his words to every species in their own language. "Our deep space monitors detected them 3 days ago. They are moving toward civilized space." The chamber erupted in chaos. Beings shouted in hundreds of different languages. Some stood in protest while others cowered in their seats. Zephyx raised all 4 arms, calling for silence. "For those who do not know the history, I will explain. 10,000 years ago, the Devourers came from the dark space between galaxies. They consumed everything. Planets, stations, entire star systems. They broke them down into raw materials and grew their fleet. 63 civilizations went extinct before the Devourers finally left our galaxy. We do not know why they left. We only know they are back." Fleet Admiral Thoraxis stood up, his red exoskeleton gleaming under the chamber lights. "How long do we have?" "At their current speed, 4 months before they reach the outer colonies. Perhaps 8 months before they strike the core worlds." Thoraxis slammed his clawed hand on his desk. "Then we combine every military vessel in the Council. We hit them with everything we have." Counselor Marathi, a floating being of pure energy contained in a crystalline form, pulsed with blue light. "And if we lose, we should begin evacuation protocols. Save who we can. Evacuate to where?" Thoraxis shouted back. "They will consume the entire galaxy eventually. There is nowhere to run." The argument continued for hours. Species blamed each other for not building stronger fleets. Old political rivalries surfaced. Some suggested surrender might be possible. Others called them cowards. Through it all, the holographic image of the Devourer fleet remained on the main screen, a constant reminder of the approaching doom. A young aide from the Paxian delegation nervously approached the speaker's platform. She was small, with gray skin and large black eyes that reflected too much light. "Excuse me, honored council members," she said, her voice shaking. "Has anyone contacted Earth?" The chamber fell silent again, but this time the silence felt different. Heavy, dangerous. The young Paxian continued, not understanding what she had just said. "The humans have been quiet lately. Perhaps they have military resources that could help. They are members of the Council now, even if junior members. Should we not ask all members for assistance?" Before anyone could answer, Elder Counselor Vrinlak rose from his seat. He was old even by the standards of his long-lived species. His skin was wrinkled and gray, and he moved slowly, supported by anti-gravity assistance. But when he spoke, every being in the chamber listened. "Under no circumstances," he said, each word carefully measured, "must we involve the humans." The young Paxian looked confused. "But Elder, I do not understand. Are they not our allies? Do they not have obligations as council members?" Brinlach turned his ancient eyes toward her. "Child, you are too young to remember. Most of this council is too young to remember. But I was there when we first made contact with Earth. I was there when we learned what they truly are." Thoraxis leaned forward. "Elder, with respect, the humans have been peaceful members. They trade fairly. They follow our laws. They have caused no problems. What danger could they pose?" Vrinlak slowly walked to the center platform, his movements deliberate. He gestured to the holographic controls, and the image of the Devourer fleet was replaced with something else. It was Earth, a blue and green planet that looked peaceful and inviting. 20 cycles ago we discovered this world," Vrinlak began. "Initial surveys showed a single intelligent species that had just invented faster than light travel. They seemed unremarkable. Social creatures, creative, somewhat aggressive by galactic standards, but nothing unusual. We granted them junior membership status and thought little of it." He changed the image. Now it showed wreckage floating in space, the remains of what had once been warships. Then the Craxus incident occurred. A pirate warlord named Craxus, who did not respect council authority, raided a human colony. He took 200 humans as slaves to sell on the black market. We sent mediators immediately to negotiate their release. We arrived with a full diplomatic escort, ready to bargain or threaten as needed. Vrinlak paused, his expression grim. We found Kraxus's entire fleet disabled. 40 warships floating dead in space. His flagship had been boarded. When we entered, we found all the human prisoners safe and unharmed. We also found prisoners of 6 other species that Kraxus had enslaved over the years, and we found Kraxus himself bound in chains waiting for us. The chamber was completely silent now. Every being hung on Vrinlak's words. There was only one human military ship, a small vessel by our standards with a crew of just 200. Their captain was a human female named Rivera. She was calm, polite even. She thanked us for our concern but said they had handled the situation. When I asked how one ship had defeated an entire pirate fleet, she smiled and said 2 words that I have never forgotten. She said creative problem solving. Vrinlak changed the image again. This time it showed pages and pages of text, scrolling too fast to read. I ordered a full investigation into Earth's history. What we found in their own public databases terrified me. This species has been at war with itself for thousands of years. They have invented weapons that could crack their own planet. They have 14 different theoretical methods to cause their own extinction that they have written about in academic papers. They have experienced global wars, genocides, and horrors that most species in this chamber cannot imagine. He turned to face the council directly, and yet they survived all of it. They made rules for how to conduct war. They wrote conventions about what is forbidden even in conflict. They developed ethics and morality alongside their weapons. They are the only species I have ever studied that contains both the capacity for unprecedented violence and the wisdom to restrain it. Marathi pulsed with uncertain light. But Elder, if they are so dangerous, why did we accept them into the council at all? Because, Vrinlak said quietly, they are only dangerous when threatened. As long as they feel safe, as long as their people are not in danger, they are peaceful, friendly, and creative. Some of the best traders and explorers in the galaxy now. But the Devourers represent an existential threat. If we involve the humans, if we show them that the entire galaxy faces extinction, we cannot predict what they will become. Thoraxis stood again. Are you saying they would betray us? Join the Devourers? No, Vrinlak said. I am saying they would try to save us. And I fear what methods they might use to do so. I fear what weapons they have built that we do not know about. I fear what a species that has spent thousands of years perfecting the art of survival might do when survival is truly at stake. He looked around the chamber at all the frightened faces. We accepted Earth into the council with one unspoken agreement. We would keep them happy, peaceful, and focused on exploration and trade. We would never give them a reason to fully militarize. We would never let them see us as threatened. Because the moment they decide we need saving, we lose all control of what happens next. The young Paxian aide spoke up again, her voice smaller now. So we face extinction alone rather than risk asking them for help? Vrinlak turned to her, and for a moment his ancient face showed something like sadness. Yes, child. We will find another way, we must, because the alternative is opening a box that can never be closed again. The council began debating strategies again, but now the conversation had changed. No one mentioned Earth anymore. The humans remained the unspoken solution that no one dared to choose. Outside the chamber, the Devourer fleet moved closer, consuming everything in its path, while the galaxy's protectors argued about how to stop them without waking the sleeping giant that called Earth home. Vrinlak sat alone in his private quarters after the council meeting ended. The other members had left to prepare their fleets and organize evacuation plans. But he remained, staring at the data files about Earth that he had kept classified for 20 years. His hands shook slightly as he opened them again, remembering the moment everything changed. The first file showed Earth as the survey team had found it. A beautiful planet with vast oceans and green continents. Cities sparkled on the night side and small satellites orbited peacefully above. The initial report had been optimistic. Intelligent species detected. Technology level, early space age. Disposition, curious and social. Threat level, minimal. Recommendation, suitable for council contact. Vrinlak had led the first contact team himself. He remembered landing in a place called New York, how the humans had greeted them with excitement and wonder. Their leaders had been diplomatic, eager to learn, respectful of galactic law. They had signed the council agreements without complaint. Everything had seemed perfect. The second file showed the beginning of the Craxus incident. The pirate warlord had been a constant problem for the council, but not important enough to dedicate major resources to stopping him. When Craxus raided the human colony on Kepler Station, it was expected to be another routine negotiation. Pirates take hostages, council mediators arrange payment or prisoner exchange, everyone goes home. It had happened 1,000 times before with a dozen different species. Brinlock remembered boarding his diplomatic vessel with a security escort of 12 ships. They had jumped to the Kepler system prepared to spend days in careful negotiation. Instead, they arrived to find a battlefield. The pirate fleet hung in space like broken toys. Their weapons were offline, their engines were dead, their life support systems were failing. Brinlock's sensors showed that every ship had been disabled with surgical precision. Nothing was destroyed. No one was killed. But every single vessel was completely helpless. The human ship was small, barely 300 meters long. It was called the UTNS Pathfinder, and it hung in space next to Craxus's flagship like a small fish next to a whale. Brinlock had hailed them immediately. Captain Rivera's face appeared on the screen. She was a human female with dark hair tied back and calm brown eyes. She smiled. "Welcome, Counselor Brinlock. We appreciate the council sending assistance, but the situation is resolved. All colony residents are safe." Brinlock had been confused. "Captain Rivera, what happened here? How did you disable an entire pirate fleet?" "We used targeted electromagnetic pulses, localized gravity manipulation, and some creative engineering," she replied, as if discussing the weather. "We needed to ensure the safety of our people without risking their lives in extended combat. Would you like to come aboard Craxus's flagship? We have something for you." Inside the flagship, Brinlock found a scene he still did not fully understand. Craxus, the feared pirate who had evaded council justice for 15 years, sat on the floor with his hands bound. Around him stood 200 human prisoners, all unharmed. But there were others too. Silthari slaves, Paxian captives, Corvin workers, species that Craxus had captured over years of raiding. Captain Rivera stood beside them all. "We found these others in the cargo holds. We've provided medical care and food. They're ready to be returned to their worlds." Brinlock had stared at her. "Captain, you understand that you have violated several council protocols? Military action requires council approval. Civilian vessels are not permitted to engage in combat operations." Rivera had nodded seriously. "We understand, Counselor. We will accept whatever consequences the council deems appropriate. But our people were in danger. We could not wait for the approval process to work through the proper channels. How did you do this?" Brinlock asked again. "Your ship is small. Craxus had 40 warships." Rivera's smile returned. "We have a saying on Earth, Counselor. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. Large ships have large vulnerabilities if you know where to look. And we've spent a very long time learning how to fight opponents bigger than ourselves." That conversation haunted Brinlock. But what came next was worse. He had ordered a full investigation into humanity's military capabilities. What his team discovered changed everything. The third file contained information from Earth's own public databases. Humans kept detailed records of their history, and they made most of it available for anyone to read. Brinlock's researchers had compiled the data, and the report made him physically ill. Humans had been fighting wars for over 5,000 years. They had refined combat into a science and an art. They had military academies that taught strategy and tactics as seriously as the Council's best scientists studied physics. They had fought with swords and spears, then with guns and cannons, then with bombs and missiles. They had fought on land, in the air, under the oceans, and in space. The report listed Earth's weapons. Nuclear devices that could level cities, biological agents that could wipe out entire populations, chemical weapons that killed in horrible ways, kinetic impactors that could strike from orbit, antimatter warheads that existed only in theoretical designs because even humans agreed they were too dangerous to build. But the weapons were not the worst part. The worst part was the thinking behind them. Humans had written books about war, thousands of books, The Art of War, On War, The Book of Five Rings. Humans studied conflict the way other species studied art or music. They had philosophers who spent their entire lives thinking about nothing but combat and strategy. The report included a section on Earth's wars. The First World War, where 10 million humans died. The Second World War, where 60 million died. Smaller conflicts that still killed millions. The nuclear near misses, where humanity almost destroyed itself by accident. And through all of it, humans kept going. They rebuilt. They learned. They created rules. The Geneva Conventions. The Hague Regulations. Rules for how to treat prisoners. Rules for what weapons were forbidden. Rules for protecting civilians. Humans had made war so terrible that they needed rules to make it less terrible. And somehow, impossibly, most human nations followed those rules even while fighting for survival. Vrinlak's hands trembled as he read the psychological profiles. Human children played war games. Human entertainment included countless stories about combat and conflict. Human sports were often stylized versions of fighting. Violence was woven into human culture so deeply that they barely noticed it anymore. But there was something else in the report, too. Humans were also capable of incredible compassion. The same species that invented nuclear weapons also created the Red Cross to help war victims. The same nations that fought brutal wars also sent aid to their former enemies afterward. Humans could hate each other intensely and then make peace and become friends. The final file was the one that made Vrinlak recommend Earth for Council membership, but with the secret classification. It was a recording of a conversation between a human historian and one of Vrinlak's researchers. "Why do humans spend so much time studying war?" the researcher asked. The historian, an old human male with white hair, had looked sad. "Because war is part of what we are. For most of our history, the ability to fight meant the ability to survive. Tribes fought tribes. Cities fought cities. Nations fought nations. We got very, very good at it. Too good. But you stopped," the researcher said. "You have had no global wars for nearly a century." "We didn't stop," the historian corrected. "We chose restraint. There's a difference. We still have all the weapons. We still have all the knowledge. We still have all the capability. But we learned something important. We learned that survival isn't just about winning fights. It's about choosing not to fight when you can win. It's about finding other solutions. We learned that the hard way after we nearly destroyed ourselves several times. So humans are peaceful now?" The historian had smiled grimly. "Humans are capable of peace. That's not the same thing. If someone truly threatened us, if someone tried to end humanity, we would fight with everything we have. And after 5,000 years of practice, everything we have is terrifying. But we would prefer to never need that. We would prefer to explore, to create, to learn, to make friends with species like yours." Vrinlak had made his decision based on that interview. Humans could be peaceful as long as they felt safe. The key was making sure they always felt safe. Let them explore the galaxy. Let them trade and make art and be curious. Just never, ever make them feel threatened. The council had quietly agreed. They accepted Earth with unusual conditions. Human ships could not have weapons beyond basic defense systems. Human colonies would have council protection. Human military development would be gently discouraged through trade incentives for peaceful technology. Earth had agreed to all of it, seemingly happy to focus on exploration and commerce. For 20 years it had worked perfectly. Humans became some of the best explorers in the galaxy. Their curiosity drove them to chart systems other species ignored. Their creativity made them excellent traders and negotiators. Their adaptability meant they could work with almost any species. Earth had been a model council member, but now Vrinlak faced an impossible choice. The Devourers were coming, and the council could not stop them alone. The humans were the sleeping giant that no one wanted to wake. If Earth learned the galaxy faced extinction, 3 weeks passed and the situation grew worse every day. The Devourer fleet moved through space like a plague, consuming everything in its path. Small colonies on the outer rim simply vanished. One day they were sending regular communications, and the next day there was nothing but empty space where planets used to be. The Council's combined fleet assembled at Rally Point Sigma, a massive gathering of warships from 200 different species. Fleet Admiral Thoraxis stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching thousands of vessels organize themselves into battle formations. It was the largest military force the modern Council had ever assembled. Dreadnoughts from the Krell Confederacy, fast attack ships from the Corvin Empire, shield generators from the Paxian Defense Forces, and hundreds more. Every species had sent what they could spare. Thoraxis felt pride looking at the fleet. Then he felt fear. because he knew it would not be enough. The forward scouts had engaged Devourer units twice. Both times the Council forces had been destroyed before they could even report what weapons the enemy was using. The only information came from automated probes that recorded the battles before being destroyed themselves. The recordings showed Devourer ships that moved in ways that violated known physics, weapons that seemed to unmake matter instead of simply destroying it, and shields that absorbed every attack the Council forces attempted. "All ships report ready," his second-in-command announced. "We can jump to intercept coordinates on your order." Thraxus took a deep breath. He was a warrior, born to a species that valued combat and honor. He had fought pirates, put down rebellions, and defended Council space for 40 years. But he had never faced anything like this. "Give the order. All ships jump in 10 minutes. The fleet engaged the Devourers at a colony system called Theta 9. The battle lasted 3 hours. Thraxus lost 70% of his forces. The Devourers moved through the Council fleet like predators through prey. Their weapons fired beams of darkness that made ships simply stop existing. Their hulls regenerated damage faster than the Council ships could inflict it. And when a Devourer ship was finally destroyed, 2 more appeared to take its place. Thraxus ordered the retreat when he realized they could not win. His flagship limped back to the Nexus station with 40 other survivors. Behind them, the colony at Theta 9 was being consumed, broken down into raw materials to build more Devourer ships. The emergency council session that followed was chaos. Species blamed each other for the defeat. Some claimed Thraxus had used poor tactics. Others said the fleet had not been large enough. A few suggested that maybe the Devourers could be negotiated with, though no one truly believed it. Counselor Rethix of the warrior caste finally slammed his fist on his desk hard enough to crack it. The chamber fell silent. Rethix was young by council standards, only 50 cycles old, but he had earned his position through combat skill and strategic thinking. "Enough," he said, his voice hard. "We lost because they are better than us. Their technology is superior. Their tactics are superior. We cannot win this fight alone." He paused, looking around the chamber. "We need to contact Earth." The chamber erupted again, but this time with a different kind of energy, fear mixed with desperate hope. Frinlac rose slowly from his seat. "No," the elder said simply. Rethix turned to face him. "Elder, with respect, we just lost 70% of our fleet. The Devourers will reach the core worlds in 4 weeks. We need help." "Not from them," Frinlac replied. "Why?" Rethix demanded. "Because you are afraid of what the humans might do? I would rather take that risk than watch the galaxy burn." Other counselors joined in. Young members, desperate members, species whose colonies were in the Devourer path. They all demanded the same thing. "Contact Earth, ask for help, use every resource available." Frinlac stood firm. He called in favors from species he had helped over decades of service. He reminded others of the classified files about human history. He painted a picture of a species that could not be controlled once they decided to act. "We will become their mission," he argued. "They will save us, yes, but at what cost? What methods will they use? What weapons will they deploy? We will trade one existential threat for another." The vote was called. Every member of the council cast their decision. The chamber counted down the results in tense silence. When the final tally appeared, Frinlac had won by a single vote. Earth would not be contacted for military assistance. Rethix stood and walked out of the chamber without a word. Several other young counselors followed him. The remaining members sat in defeated silence, knowing they had just voted to face the Devourers without their best possible ally. What, Frinlac did not know was that information, could not be contained forever. Sala was a young, Paxian diplomat who had lost her entire homeworld. During the Battle of Theta 9, her people had evacuated barely 10% of their population before the Devourers arrived. She had watched from a transport ship as her planet was consumed, broken apart piece by piece, turned into fuel for the enemy fleet. She had sat through the council session shaking with rage as the elder members debated and politicked while her people died. When the vote came back negative, when they decided not to contact Earth, something inside her broke. That night, she accessed the diplomatic communication channels. She was junior staff, but she had the codes. She found the address for Earth's council ambassador and composed a message. Her hands shook as she typed, "Ambassador Chen, my name is Sala. I am a Paxian diplomat. The council has decided not to request military assistance from Earth. But I believe you deserve to know what is happening. The Devourers have returned. We are losing. My homeworld is gone. Billions are dead. More will die. The Council is afraid of what you might do if you help us. I do not care. I would rather live in a galaxy saved by humans than die in a galaxy too proud to ask for help. Attached are the casualty reports, fleet deployments, and projected Devourer movements. Do with this information what you will. She sent the message before she could change her mind. Then she sat in her quarters and cried for her lost world. Ambassador Chen received the message in his office at the human embassy on the Nexus station. He was a middle-aged man with gray at his temples and eyes that had seen too much. He had served Earth's diplomatic corps for 30 years, and he had learned to read between the lines of what the Council said and did not say. He read Sala's message 3 times. Then he opened the attachments and studied the data. His expression did not change, but his hands gripped the desk edge tighter with each file he opened. When he finished, he sat back in his chair and closed his eyes. He thought about the Council's fear of humanity. He thought about Earth's careful restraint over the past 20 years. He thought about what his superiors in Earth's government would say when they learned the galaxy was facing extinction and no one had asked for help. Then he opened a secure channel back to Earth and began composing his report. He kept it simple and factual, the way military reports were supposed to be written. Secretary General, I have received information through unofficial channels that the galaxy faces an existential threat. An entity called the Devourers has begun consuming populated systems. Council forces have engaged and suffered catastrophic losses. The Council has voted not to request Earth's military assistance due to concerns about our involvement. However, I believe Earth's government should be made aware of the situation. Detailed intelligence is attached. Waiting for authorization to act. He sent the message and waited. The response came back in 6 hours. It was short. Ambassador Chen, Earth Security Council has reviewed the intelligence. Our official response to the Galactic Council is that we respect their decision and will not interfere in Council military operations. Our unofficial response is this: we don't need their permission to defend our neighbors. Fleet authorization granted. Try not to start a diplomatic incident. Chen smiled for the first time in weeks. That was the most Earth response possible. Follow the rules, but not when following rules means letting people die. He sent one more message, this time to a military channel he was not supposed to have access to. Admiral Foster, you have authorization. Rules of engagement. Save as many lives as possible. Try to make friends, not enemies, and show them we're the good guys. The response came back immediately. Understood. Terra Task Force Alpha is moving to deployment positions. We'll be gentle. Chen sat back in his chair. He had just violated several Council protocols and possibly ended his diplomatic career. He had also potentially saved billions of lives and started a new chapter in human-galactic relations. He thought about Vrinlak and the Elder Counselors, so afraid of what humanity might do. He understood their fear. Earth's history was violent, and humans had proven they could be terrifying when threatened. But what the Council did not understand was that humans had learned something important from their bloody past. They had learned that the capacity for violence and the wisdom not to use it could exist in the same being. They had learned that protecting others was more important than following rules that let people die. They had learned that sometimes the scariest thing about having power was choosing when not to use it. Chen opened his office window and looked out at the Nexus station, at the thousands of beings Ferhat would the warning came from a Council deep space monitoring station near the border of explored space. The technician on duty, a young Corvan named Tillix, was reviewing routine sensor data when his screen suddenly filled with alerts. Ships were appearing. Lots of ships. Ships that were not supposed to be there. Station Commander, Tillix called out, his voice rising with panic. We have multiple unknown contacts. They just appeared on sensors. No jump signatures, no warning. They're just there. The commander rushed to his station. Show me. The main screen displayed 18 contacts, each one a warship-sized vessel, but they had not arrived using standard faster-than-light jump technology. They had not created the usual distortion waves or radiation signatures. They had simply appeared in normal space as if they had always been there. Get identification, the commander ordered, and alert the Council Defense Coordinator immediately. Tillix worked frantically at his console. The ships were using standard Council identification protocols, which was odd for unknown vessels. The data came back and Tillix felt his blood turn cold. Commander, they're human ships. Military designation Terra Task Force Alpha. Flagship is the UTNS Indomitable. The commander stared at the screen in disbelief. That's impossible. Earth doesn't have military vessels in this sector. Earth isn't supposed to have military vessels anywhere outside their home system. Get the Council on the line now. Within the hour, the emergency session of the Galactic Council was in chaos. Vrinlak stood at the center platform, his ancient face showing more anger than most council members had ever seen from him. Someone explained to me, he said, his voice dangerously quiet, how 18 human warships appeared in council space without authorization. The defense coordinator, a Zelthari named Crix, pulled up the sensor data. Elder, we don't know how they got there. Our monitoring systems show no jump signatures. They simply appeared. The technology is unlike anything we've seen before. It's as if they moved through space by ignoring the space between their origin and destination. That's impossible, Counselor Marathi said. No species has that technology. Apparently one does, Vrinlak replied. He turned to the chamber doors. Bring in the human ambassador, now. Ambassador Chen entered the chamber calmly as if he had been expecting the summons. He walked to the speaker's platform without hurrying, his expression neutral. Around him dozens of species stared with mixtures of fear, anger, and confusion. The Grand Counselor, a being of crystallized light named Praxum, spoke first. Ambassador Chen, Earth has deployed military vessels into Council space without permission or notification. This is a violation of our agreements. Explain yourself. Chen looked up at the assembled Council members. Earth became aware through unofficial channels that the galaxy faces an existential threat. We noticed the Council was hesitant to involve us. We understand your concerns about human military involvement. However, Earth's Security Council took a vote among our representatives. The resolution passed unanimously. He paused, letting his words sink in. The resolution stated, when the galaxy faces extinction, humanity does not wait for an invitation to help our neighbors. The chamber erupted. Accusations flew from dozens of species at once. Warmongering, violations of sovereignty, reckless endangerment, unauthorized military action. The translator devices could barely keep up with the angry voices. Counselor Rethik stood up and shouted over the noise. Quiet, let him speak. Chen nodded his thanks to Rethix. The Council chose not to request our assistance. We respect that choice. However, nothing in our agreements prevents us from defending regions of space where attacks are occurring, especially when those attacks threaten civilian populations. Earth has determined that the Devourer threat qualifies as a clear and present danger to galactic peace. Brinlak stepped forward, his old eyes meeting Chen's directly. You violated our trust. We specifically voted not to involve Earth. With respect, Elder, Chen replied. You voted not to ask for our help. That is different from forbidding us to offer it. We are members of this council, even if junior members. When the council faces an existential threat, we have a right to defend ourselves and our allies. You should have waited for authorization, Grand Counselor Praxum said. Chen's expression hardened slightly. While we waited for authorization, how many more beings would have died? How many more colonies would have been consumed? The Paxian homeworld is gone. Theta 9 is gone. The Devourers are not waiting for proper diplomatic procedures. Neither can we. Vrinlak's voice was cold. What's done is done. The question now is, what will your ships do? Chen looked around the chamber. What they were sent to do, Elder, protect civilians. Engage hostile forces. Save as many lives as possible. And try very hard not to make the situation worse. And if we order you to withdraw, then I will pass that order to Fleet Command, Chen said carefully. But I suspect they will point out that as council members, humans have the same right to defend council space as any other species. Especially when that space is under active attack. Mirathi pulsed with uncertain light. What makes you think 18 ships can make a difference? We lost hundreds at Theta 9, Chen smiled slightly. Earth has been studying combat for a very long time. We're reasonably good at it. Let's see what happens. What happened was something the Council would talk about for generations. The Terra Task Force Alpha encountered a Devourer Harvester group at System J447, a gas giant system with 12 moons and a small mining colony. The Devourers were in the process of consuming the moons, breaking them down into raw materials. Their harvester ship was massive, 3 times the size of the largest Council dreadnought, covered in geometric patterns that hurt to look at. Captain Maria Santos of the UTNS Indomitable studied the enemy vessel from her command chair. She was 45 years old with sharp eyes and graying hair tied back in a practical bun. She had served in Earth's Navy for 27 years and had studied military history since she was 10. Around her, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency. "Tactical analysis," she ordered. Her weapons officer, Lieutenant Commander Park, pulled up the data. "The Harvester is protected by some kind of energy field. Deflects conventional weapons. The smaller ships around it appear to be drones, automated defense systems. 32 contacts total. Life signs?
None. The Devourers appear to be entirely machine intelligence."
"No biological components detected." Santos nodded. Fighting machines was different from fighting living beings. No morale to break, no fear to exploit, no negotiations possible. Just pure problem solving. "Recommendations?" Park smiled. "I have a few ideas. Remember the Saturn exercises? The ones where we disabled that entire mock fleet in under 10 minutes? Santos smiled back. "I like the way you think. Coordinate with the other ships. Let's show them what creative problem solving looks like." The human fleet did not charge in with weapons blazing. They did not attempt direct confrontation. Instead, they moved with precision that spoke of thousands of simulations and centuries of tactical development. Half the fleet launched specialized missiles that did not explode. Instead, they released clouds of microscopic particles that interfered with sensors and energy fields. The Devourer Harvester's shields flickered and failed as the particles disrupted the field generation. The other half of the fleet opened fire with kinetic weapons moving at a significant fraction of light speed. The projectiles were not explosive. They were simply very dense metal moving very fast. When they hit the Harvester, the impacts released energy equivalent to nuclear detonations. The Devourer drones responded, swarming toward the human ships. But the human vessels moved in ways that Council ships never did. They used the gas giant's gravity to slingshot around at impossible angles. They used the debris from destroyed drones as cover. They coordinated their fire with split-second timing, multiple ships targeting the same points simultaneously. 8 minutes after the engagement began, the Devourer Harvester broke apart. The drones, without their command ship, attempted to scatter. The human fleet hunted them down methodically, destroying each one with minimal weapon usage. When the system was clear, the human ships moved to the mining colony and began evacuation procedures. No celebration, no speeches, just calm efficiency and immediate focus on saving civilians. Captain Santos recorded a brief message back to Council Space. "Terra Task Force Alpha to Council Defense Coordination. System J447 is secure. All hostile forces eliminated. Civilian evacuation in progress. Moving to next contact. Santos out." The message reached the Nexus station and was played in an emergency council session. The chamber watched in silence as the human ships moved through the wreckage of the Devourer fleet, their weapons already recharging, their shields already regenerating, ready for the next battle. Counselor Rethix turned to Vrinlak. 8 minutes. They destroyed a force that would have taken us hours to fight, and they did it in 8 minutes. Vrinlak said nothing. His worst fears were being confirmed. The humans were as effective as he had suspected, but what troubled him more was how restrained they appeared. 18 ships. Earth could have sent hundreds, maybe thousands, based on what his classified files suggested. They had sent exactly enough force to make a difference without overwhelming Council space. Over the next 3 days, human forces engaged Devourer units in 17 different systems. The Devourer core fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system with absolute confidence. 2,000 ships strong, they had destroyed hundreds of civilizations over millennia. They had consumed entire sectors of the galaxy. One single planet, home to a species that had barely left its own star system, would fall in hours. Their sensors detected Earth, the blue and green world orbiting a yellow star. They detected the usual signs of civilization. Cities, satellites, space stations. Nothing impressive, nothing threatening. They moved forward, their weapons charging, their harvesting systems preparing to break the planet into raw materials. Then, everything changed. The first indication something was wrong came when the Devourer Vanguard detected thousands of new contacts appearing on their sensors. Ships emerged from hiding places throughout the solar system. Behind the moon called Luna, dozens of warships uncloaked. Inside the asteroid belt, hundreds more activated their engines. Near the gas giants Jupiter and Saturn, entire fleets that had been running silent suddenly powered up their weapon systems. The Devourer intelligence tried to recalculate. The numbers did not make sense. Earth was supposed to be a minor species, junior members of the Council. Where had all these ships come from? The answer was simple. Earth had been building its military for 200 years, ever since humans first left their own planet and realized they were not alone in the universe. But they had been quiet about it, peaceful, focused on exploration and trade. The Council had seen what humans wanted them to see. Now, with their homeworld directly threatened, Earth showed what they had really been doing all that time. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UTNS Terra, the flagship of Earth's home defense fleet. She was Ambassador Chen's older sister, though few people knew that. She had been preparing for this moment for 30 years, running simulations, training crews, building weapons that Earth had never mentioned to the Council. All ships report ready, her tactical officer announced. Solar defense grid is online. All platforms armed. Sarah looked at the display showing the approaching Devourer fleet. 2,000 ships. It was almost insulting that they thought that would be enough. Open a channel to all Earth forces. Let's show them why you don't threaten humanity's home. Throughout the Sol system, human forces activated. The ships that emerged from hiding were just the beginning. Earth had turned its entire solar system into a fortress over the past century, and the Council had never noticed. Orbital weapons platforms around Earth itself opened fire first. Railguns that accelerated projectiles to impossible speeds using magnetic fields. Laser arrays that had been disguised as communication satellites. Missile networks that launched thousands of warheads simultaneously. The platforms had been built slowly, quietly, explained away as research stations or mining facilities or weather satellites. The Devourer vanguard ran directly into this wall of fire. Ships that had survived battles with entire Council fleets were torn apart by the concentrated barrage. The machine intelligence tried to adapt, tried to activate shields and defensive measures. But the humans had studied the data from every battle the Council had fought. They knew where the Devourer defenses were weakest. The main Devourer fleet tried to push through, believing that numbers would overwhelm the defenders. They were wrong. Human ships met them in the space between Mars and Earth, and the real battle began. Captain Santos, recalled from the front lines with the rest of Terra Task Force Alpha, led her squadron in a flanking maneuver that would have been called insane by Council standards. Her ships dove through the middle of the Devourer formation, weapons firing in all directions, using the enemy's own ships as cover from each other. All weapons free. Santos ordered calmly, "Remember your training. Each ship is a target-rich environment. Make every shot count." Her weapons officer grinned. "With this many targets, we don't have to aim very carefully." The human fleet fought with a coordination that the Devourers could not match. Every ship knew where every other ship was. They covered each other, created overlapping fields of fire, and moved as a single organism with thousands of parts. It was the result of centuries of military doctrine, countless exercises, and a species that had refined combat into both science and art. But the ships were only part of Earth's defense. The moon had been militarized decades ago. Weapons emplacements built into craters opened fire, adding their firepower to the battle. Mars, humanity's first colony, revealed defensive platforms that added to the barrage. The asteroid belt proved to be the Devourer's worst nightmare. Humans had built hidden bases inside hundreds of asteroids over the past 50 years. When the Devourer fleet tried to retreat through the belt, the rocks themselves opened fire. Weapons emerged from what the Devourers had thought was natural debris. The machine intelligence realized too late that humans had weaponized their entire solar system. The battle lasted 48 hours, not because the Devourers were winning, but because there were so many of them that it took time to destroy them all. The human forces methodically eliminated targets, never rushing, never panicking, just executing the defense plan they had practiced thousands of times. Admiral Chen watched from the Terra as the last Devourer ship was destroyed. Her tactical display showed the wreckage of 2,000 enemy vessels floating throughout the Sol system. It showed 3,000 human ships still operational. It showed that not a single Devourer vessel had escaped to report what had happened. "Get me damage reports," she ordered, "and casualty figures." The reports came back within the hour. 83 human ships destroyed. 42 more damaged but repairable. 3,200 crew members killed. 7,000 injured. The defense of Earth had cost less than 5,000 human lives. The Devourers had killed billions in their previous awakening. They had destroyed entire civilizations. At Earth, they had been stopped completely. The message was clear. Humanity had been ready for existential war since before they even left their own star system. They had simply been polite enough not to mention it. Admiral Chen recorded a message to the Council. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of Earth's Home Defense Fleet. The Devourer Core Fleet has been eliminated. Sol system is secure. We are ready to coordinate with Council forces to eliminate remaining Devourer units throughout the galaxy. Earth stands ready to assist in any way needed. The message reached the Nexus station within hours. The emergency council session that followed was unlike any in galactic history. The council members watched recordings of the Battle of Sol system in stunned silence. They saw the thousands of human ships. They saw the weapons platforms. They saw the level of coordination and firepower that should have taken centuries to develop. Vrinlak watched the recordings with a mixture of vindication and shame. He had been right to fear human military capability, but he had been wrong about everything else. The humans had not gone berserk. They had not used planet-killing weapons. They had fought with precision and restraint even while defending their homeworld. And now, instead of celebrating their victory, they were offering to help clean up the remaining Devourer forces. Councillor Rethix stood up. I move that we accept Earth's offer of assistance and extend formal gratitude for their defense of the galaxy. Seconded, Mirathi pulsed. Vrinlak rose slowly. Before we vote, I wish to speak. The chamber fell silent. I spent 20 years afraid of what humanity might become if they felt threatened. I tried to keep them peaceful by keeping them safe. I thought I was protecting the galaxy from them, but I was wrong. He looked around at the assembled council. Humanity did not need to be managed or controlled. They needed to be trusted. They have the capacity for violence, yes. They have weapons that terrify me, yes. But they also have wisdom. They fought to protect their neighbors, not to conquer them. They used exactly as much force as necessary, not as much as they had available. And now they offer to help us finish what they could have handled alone. He turned to Ambassador Chen, who had entered the chamber quietly. Ambassador, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I apologize for not trusting your species, and I thank you for ignoring our lack of trust and helping us anyway. Chen walked to the speaker's platform. Elder Counselor, humanity learned something thousands of years ago, though we sometimes forget it. The capacity for violence and the choice not to use it are what define civilization. We have the ability to be terrifying, but we would rather be friends. He looked around the chamber. We understand why you were afraid. Our history is violent. We have done terrible things to ourselves and we remember all of it. But we learned from those mistakes. We learned that survival is not just about being strong enough to destroy your enemies. It is about being wise enough to choose when not to fight, about being compassionate enough to help others even when it costs you something. Rethix spoke up. What will Earth do now? With your military revealed, with your capabilities known, what are your intentions? Chen smiled. The same thing we were doing before. Exploring the galaxy, trading with our neighbors, making friends. The only difference is now you know we can defend ourselves and our friends if necessary. We hope that knowledge makes you feel safer, not more threatened.